I'm Earl Curry, Vice President and Chief Transportation Officer. This is our November update of performance measures and also a little look at what we might see ahead in 1995. Starting out with safety, our most important critical measures. We had a very good month in November. We actually saw a 35% improvement compared to November of 1993, which makes this the best monthly performance we've had this year. This really sets the stage for the ambitious program we have for safety improvement for next year of getting down to the 1.5 frequency ratio. Year-to-date, you'll notice that we are even with 1993. From this, of course, we have not made our goal for improvement. The encouraging sign is in recent months we have shown month-to-month improvements over a year ago. So again, we have the stage set pretty well for next year. Human factor derailments. In November, we actually did not do as well as the same month of 93. We actually had 2 more. Also, it should be noted that November was not as good as the month of September. So we've had some deterioration in this one we have to be concerned about. Year-to-date, for total derailments, both reportable and non-reportable by FRA standards, we do see a 9% improvement. And we will expect a challenging goal on this in 95, perhaps in the area of 20% improvement. It should be noted that we did exceptionally well as a company for the year. In fact, we are now in first place in this category of safety performance among all U.S. railroads. This is the first time we've made this, and you ought to take a lot of pride in this. First of all, under car scheduling, we set a goal of 75%, but of course we need to consider that we went to a new concept by doing away with manual rescheduling. That, of course, required an adjustment in the base. You see here that in November, we actually achieved 70.2%, which should be about 5% below the goal. We did have 31 terminals, though, that did make the goal or better in November, so that's very encouraging when we look at those numbers. There are at least 3 outstanding examples of achievement on right car, right train that we should point out. One is Akron, Ohio, achieved 98.2%. Very consistent, outstanding service would be the result of that kind of performance. Florence, South Carolina also was outstanding at 88.9%, and the same level of 88.9 for Philadelphia. So congratulations to those 3 terminals, as well as the other 28 that were as good as goal or better. For those that have not made the 75% performance on a monthly basis, there is work to do in managing our operation to make the connections, to achieve the service standards, and we are going to expect programs to improve that level of performance as we move ahead here. This graph shows our monthly measure on customers not switched or switched late. We started an intense look at this measure after the results of June, where we had 155 such complaints. And notice we've had continuous progress. In fact, in November, we got this down to 61, which is the best that we've ever had. Now, if we can see some further improvement also in right car, right train on a system-wide basis, we'll have the foundation for much improved service. This graph shows movable freight, that is, cars on hand over 30 hours in active status. Note a tremendous improvement from early in the year, although we did bottom out in September and have had an increase since then. We are still running below the goal which we set of 14,000. But there is some reason for concern on this, although volumes, of course, have been heavier in the 4th quarter, so some of this had to be expected. This graph shows total customer complaints from all causes going back from a year ago, December 93, through November. We made a big reduction from June and throughout the summer and coming into the fall, although you can see on the right-hand side here that we have an adverse trend the last 2 months. These complaints have begun to increase And of course, this measure is really our ultimate report card. What does the customer think of how well we're operating? Continued focus on this is necessary. Some of this we have to tie into the fact that volumes have been very high, and we've had some disruptions to service. But again, a measure that has to be focused on to drive this down toward continuous improvement. So we'll continue to have a lot of heavy emphasis on this as the ultimate measure of service delivery. We see on this graph carloads per yard crew, a measure of efficiency in terminals. This is the first time that we've shown this measure, and if you take a look at the results since July, you see an outstanding rate of improvement. In fact, as noted, we have improved 9% from January through November. This is an excellent reflection on terminal management. We have gotten much more productivity from the yard crews by good management, good organization of work, and living within our budget means. So overall, I'm very pleased to show this graph, and again, it's a reflection of how well the terminal network on this property is running. Looking ahead to 1995 volumes, we expect an increase of 161,000 carloads over this year. That's about a 3% increase. This will be a challenge to our terminals to manage expenses, keep improving this rate of productivity with our yard crews. We have efficiency improvements baked into the 1995 expense budget as well. And of course, some of these measures we're talking about here are a very important part of our T&E labor performance improvement team approach as well. You see here another new graph we haven't used before on equipment utilization, this being the productivity of the open-top hopper car fleet. This is another story of an outstanding result where we actually outdid ourselves in what we thought we could do this year. In November, for example, the plan called for 3.22 trips per month. We actually achieved 3.33. You should also note that a year ago when we developed the plan for open-top utilization, we had 2 months in which we projected 3.07, and we thought that was an extremely ambitious plan, and really at that time we're a little skeptical on our ability to get it. But all the divisions and terminals who are involved in the coal delivery process, which is a big part of the railroad, have done a very fine job. It should be pointed out at this time that the President, Mr. Carpenter, has challenged us to further improve this utilization rate so we can get up to 3.6 next year. A companion measurement to what we just talked about in terms of trips per month is this measure of days per load. This measure you'll see outstanding results in also if you look back to January when the days per load was 15.6, and then by November of this year we'd actually dropped it down to 9.3. That is a tremendous improvement. We're going to be focusing more on this days per load instead of trips per month, because if you look at days per load, you don't have this difference in the divisor depending on whether a month has 30 or 31 days. So again, this is a better measure, we think. We see here another new graph in this video, that being the utilization rate of the jumbo covered hopper fleet. We were including that one, of course, because at this time of the year, the big grain movements we have, and that's an important part of the profit plan, because by turning this part of the car fleet fast, we can get the grain revenue in that much faster to help achieve the necessary financial results for this year. You note on here that we're actually running at about the plan level, which is good. We've made steady improvements in the last few years in this measure. We continue to get better at this, and actually the trips per month in November are as good as we've ever seen. This graph simply shows the amount of ag products, primarily grain, being loaded in jumbo covered hoppers. Note that the actual has been a little bit behind the plan, but it has not been at all for want of car utilization or car availability. We have turned the fleet, as shown in the previous graph, to meet the demand. Next, we see the results of our curtailment in operations over the Thanksgiving holiday. Note we achieved about $900,000, which is much better than we had expected per the original plan. About $400,000 of those savings came simply by the expected lower levels of volume that you see over a holiday period. But note the $500,000 that came by an enhanced plan and what I think is outstanding execution of that plan to make these savings. We had originally forecast that yellow piece would be about $200,000, but we ended up actually achieving $500,000. And that has come about by a very good plan put together jointly with service design and sales and marketing, and then of course a lot of innovation in the field and at the operations center to squeeze out some additional money. It should be noted also on the Thanksgiving results that we saved a lot of deadheading and held away costs because we put in the plan that we would run crews to home terminals before we tied up trains over the duration of the curtailment. So again, good planning, good execution. We got the people home and saved a lot of money without enduring complaints. A number of items I'd like to comment about in closing. One is the banding concept. The superintendents were in for a meeting jointly with Wally Lee a couple of weeks ago and have learned the basics of that process and the reasons for it and what the impacts will be. We had some pretty good feedback that the concept is better understood and perhaps as a result not as onerous as people might have thought it would be. We will be now holding a number of workout meetings intended to substantially improve the performance by all the measures we have in the Nashville-Chicago pilot project. We're looking forward to this. We have quite a few re-engineered processes that we're ready to bake into the operation that we think will give us a chance to run quite a lot better. So we'll be testing those out. That's the whole idea of that corridor concept. So right after the first of the year, we'll see a lot of increased effort and some new ways of looking at our operation put into effect so we can evaluate these to see if they should be extended throughout the system. Overall, this will give us a chance to see just how well we can run a corridor with all this intensive effort and also start getting an idea of what are the real opportunities in re-engineering. How much more can we get out of it that re-engineering is in position to solve, if you will. On the area of personnel changes, two major changes that we should mention. One is Randy Evans coming in as new superintendent of the Jacksonville division. Randy will be new to the operating department, but I think with the perspective that he will bring in from a very interesting and varied background, we'll all learn a lot from him and be working to get him up to speed on all the things that it takes to successfully run a division. Tyrone James, who has been division superintendent at Jacksonville, will be coming to work on my staff. Tyrone will be general director of transportation development programs. Main responsibility Tyrone will have on this assignment will be to administer and also take on some of the teaching load in the new 1995 training program we'll have for all of our transportation managers. Tyrone, as we all know, is an excellent communicator, and he's very good at organizing work, and as a result, I think will fit into very well into this new role. 1994 overall has been a good year for us. It appears the company will make its financial targets. We moved a lot more business than we had expected we would. We've had some very difficult obstacles to overcome, but one of the best things about it is that we have not suffered any extreme prolonged congestion or gridlock, which sometimes, as we know, happens in railroads when you get these big surges of business, especially over a sustained period. It's a real credit to our terminal network in particular that we have not had terminals get in big trouble for sustained periods. They have run very well. The operations center capability of better managing the locomotive fleet has helped us a lot. The utilization rate on power has gone up. The train delay for power is much lower than we would have expected if we had been managing at the same level of previous years. Those are two examples of vastly improved proficiency that we see that gave us a chance to grow the top line revenue this year successfully and make the bottom line profit plan. Obviously, we all know that we did not make our goal in employee safety. I think there are some encouraging aspects of that, though, in that we see several divisions which have been running below a 2.0 frequency ratio. Within those divisions, major areas of activity that have perfect safety records. So we know that we can build on those successes by continuing to focus on some of the weaker areas and by the excellent programs that we have lined up now for 1995. But we will definitely have to, in our transportation, be sure that we carry our weight and then some for the company as a whole to achieve the 1.5 frequency ratio next year as part of our continuing effort to become the best in safety. We have that capability. I want to mention just a few highlights of 1995. We mentioned earlier that we expect carloads to increase 3% next year. So that indicates that the level of business activity will not be dropping off. Also, the gross ton miles will be up about 2% next year, which is probably the best measure of work to be performed. At the same time, through our T&E pit process, we will be expected to reduce a number of major categories of labor expense, particularly in constructive allowances, the expenses related to absenteeism, pattern layoffs, and also by further improvements in our terminal productivity. These are very challenging areas. As an example, our target level for next year will provide for a reduction in labor dollars per train mile of 3.6%. That's an ambitious target. And this year, with the higher volumes we had and some congestion points here and there, we did overrun some of these expenses. But next year, with a more ambitious profit plan, these parts of transportation expense will have to come down in line with this profit plan. So you will see next year a very major effort on reducing T&E labor expense. In closing, I want to thank again the entire management team, all of our professional railroaders who work for you for a good year of service delivery, and I think a good foundation laid toward improvement in safety, as I mentioned. So I hope all of you get at least a little time off over this holiday period to get rested up with the challenges of 95, and we'll look forward to an even greater next year by all the aspects of performance we're expected to deliver on. Thank you.